Welcome back to 2 Cents We See Scary Movies, the podcast where we watch horror films and slowly realize the real villains might actually be us, because when we keep watching movies like this, it signals maybe we should make more. This month's theme is Kills Like Teen Spirit, which means high school horror, questionable morals, and adults who absolutely do not think their choices through. I'm Talon, a person who watched this movie and kept asking, wait, why are we doing this? And with me, as always, is Dan, who watched Cherry Falls and responded by mentally filing complaints against half the cast.
You're actually kind of accurate.
That was my guess. And we watched the same movie. Today's movie is Cherry Falls. Let's get into it. Before we get into it, welcome to season 2. We made it to a second season.
Woohoo!
Yeah, not without my own fuck-ups. So the reason why we didn't have a November or December or January or February was mainly because of November, because we recorded an episode for, almost recorded an episode for November. We did the whole thing, and I realized I forgot to press fucking record.
This can be filed underneath lost media.
Yeah, it's funny when I opened Riverside. It's set up where it has each of our episodes, and I have one, the studio for it, and it just says empty. I was like, damn, thanks for rubbing it in. Anyway, so then when we didn't record that one, realized also there were 2 Thursdays in that month, because Thursdays when we record, that we weren't going to be able to do it anyway, one of them being Thanksgiving and one because I had to do something else. And it was like, well, November is a bust. And I was like, well, let's just put it off, take a break, and we'll come back with this season 2. But we were also busy. We're busy too. Yeah. We're both, in case anybody cares and wants to know, we are both writing. Well, I've written a book. He's writing a book. And I've also been doing a bunch of other stuff. We have a website now. If anybody wants to see it, it's 2centsscarymovies.com.
I just learned about it, and I already know what it is.
So if you want to visit our website, that would be fantastic. It also has links to my book, and then it has a potential link to Dan's book when his is finished.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is what can they find on our website? Links to our books, well, yours, and then mine, if it comes out, and then what else can they find on?
Well, right now they can, of course, find our episodes. It's just a place for our episodes and a home that I will eventually expand on, but this is just the base for now. And then in my book, I wrote this book with my son, who is now 14, but we started it when he was 9. We've been working on it for 5 years, and it's a technological horror called Friendos. And if anybody would like to go check it out, it's available on Amazon. Wow.
Ooh. Are you ready
for the movie? I don't know. All right.
Wasn't that one of your taglines for the book? Are you ready?
Oh yeah. That was what the heck was my tagline? I had to take a break because I was getting totally. Because we have the standard version of the book, but we are also coming out with an interactive version of the book, which is, if anybody out there is into ARGs, it should be a whole lot of fun. And we're working really hard on making it a very cool ARG. So
is that like a new choose your own adventure sort of book? Remember those?
I loved those. I loved those as a kid. But no, it's not really a choose your own adventure, but you can do a whole lot of stuff. There's websites and all kinds of crazy codes and stuff that you got to figure out, and secret pictures and secret videos and all kinds of fun stuff. But anyway.
All right.
So we can get into this movie, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. So the movie opens with a teenage guy, Rod, and a girl, Stacy, and they're parked in a car in the middle of the woods. They're making out. The guy starts rambling about celestial beings and ancestors and some
weird
cosmic
shit.
Excuse for why they should be having sex.
Right.
It's an interesting tactic, I guess.
I mean, guys always come up with weird shit, and that was probably takes the cake.
Right, yeah. Although there is something that comes up in just a second that I'm guessing he really is into it. So he decides he's going to make his move, and he's unsuccessful at it. It pisses Stacy off. She scratches his face. I mean, she really reacted.
Oh yeah,
a little extremely.
It was a situation where he was not really trying to force himself.
No, he was just trying to make his move.
Right.
She was like, absolutely fucking not. Scratch.
Right.
So, yeah. So after that, she gets out of the car. She's upset. And then she basically tells him, if you keep this up, you're getting nothing. So he follows her out. He's, whispers some sweet nothings in her ear about how he wants his first time to be with her. And she's like, oh, shucks. And she eventually gives in and gets back in the car.
Because that line always works.
Always. So that's when we see another vehicle that has been sitting in the woods, then drives up behind the car, headlights blaring, and it focuses on the back of Rod's car, and the license plate says Sup Nova. Now I don't think he's saying like, what's up, Nova?
Right.
I think it's short for supernova, because his car wasn't a Nova either.
Right.
So because he wasn't driving a Nova, but he was talking about all that celestial shit, I think he's actually just committed to this celestial theme. Like he's really into the stars. And it wasn't just, him trying to get in her pants. Although I think it helped, or he thought it was going to help. So Rod, they're like, what the hell is this? So Rod gets out of the car to see what's going on. He starts calling out names like Ben and Mark, thinking maybe it's one of his friends messing with him. But as he gets closer to the car, he sees there's someone sitting in the car with this long, scraggly, dark hair that he doesn't recognize. And he's like, what the heck? But before he can really truly react, the door swings open, knocks him down. The driver gets out and immediately starts attacking him with a knife and just stabbing him frantically, like crazy. I don't know how he survived that, because it was a lot of stabbing. Right. Back inside the car, Stacy is screaming his name, Rod, 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 and she's freaking out. So she decides to lock the doors because obviously she probably just assumes Rod's gone, or why not lock the doors? Don't help him.
Right. And let's add that these were like cars that did not have electric locks.
Yeah. It was an old car.
It was.
Push button locks. Yeah.
And it also looked like they had the roll down windows.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. So she locks the doors, and then you can hear Rod as he's crawling, obviously, because you can't see him, but he's gotten closer to the car and he's moaning and groaning. You can tell he's badly hurt. He's calling out her name. After some hesitation, she decides to unlock the door, and I'm like, woman.
Yeah, no, he's already gone. He's dead.
Right. Don't unlock that damn door. What are you doing? So she unlocks it to help him. And as soon as she does, and he starts to crawl up into the car, the attacker returns, stabs him again in the back, pulls him out. Then he starts just wildly swinging this knife inside the car. And I'm assuming he's probably slashing up her legs and stuff, because her back's up against her door and she's like trying to kick at him and, do all this stuff. And then they are slashing at her. So then she opens up her door, gets out. The person runs around, grabs her, throws her up against a tree, basically rubs a knife across her face, rubs blood on her lips, and then moves in like they're going to kiss her, which you're assuming is what happens. And then it fades out, and it's the end of the opening scene. And welcome to Cherry Falls.
Yay! It's a very good opening welcome.
Yeah.
It's warm and friendly.
You need something to hook them in. We cut to our main character, Jody Markham, who's portrayed by Brittany Murphy, sitting in a car with her boyfriend, Kenny, and they're parked right outside her parents' house. It's nighttime. It's late. They're making out. Things are getting all hot and heavy, and Kenny keeps trying to push things further. Jody shuts him down, reminding him that she's already 15 minutes past curfew. Kenny makes a snide comment about how sixth graders are allowed to stay out later than she is. He then mutters, so this show, I watched it on whatever it was, Cine something, and it did not have captions. I don't know where you watched it and if you looked at captions, but it did not have captions where I watched it. So he says something that I rewound it several times to try to understand what he was saying, because I didn't have the captions to back it up. But it was something along the lines, because I still don't know what he said exactly, but it was something along the lines of guys can die if they stay a virgin or something like that.
Yeah.
And Jody fires back, yeah, that's right up there with global warming. And then that's when Kenny suddenly, he sits up and he decides they should break up because, we've been dating for a year. I've got nothing. We need to break up.
Right.
He comes off as a complete asshole.
It's time.
Right.
Put up or shut up.
Right. So now Jody's confused and upset. And then while they're having this little conversation, this argument about the breakup or whatever, you can see headlights pulling up behind them. And for a second, it feels like it's going to be the opening scene all over again. But it's not. It's Jody's mom, Pam Markham. And then we go into this weird exchange between Pam and Kenny right in front of Jody.
Yeah, it was very predatory.
It was so weird. I was like, what the fuck? So it's some really awkward, uncomfortable flirting going on. So Pam bums a cigarette from Kenny, mentions that her husband doesn't let her smoke in the house, and calls this her one guilty pleasure, which I highly question. I'm pretty sure she has other guilty pleasures.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Then Jody asks if her dad is still up, and Pam looks up at the house and she says, the coast is clear, but you might want to get up there quick. There's this exchange, but then Kenny looks at her, the mom, and says, Miss Markham, your headlights are on.
It's so fucking weird.
And it's obviously meant to be this kind of double entendre, like her headlights on her car are on, but her headlights are on, whatever.
Right.
And then, of course, yeah. So, and then she's like, she compliments him on being observant. And
how observant.
Right. So there's a lot of this in this movie. There's a lot of sexual innuendo that goes absolutely nowhere too, by the way.
But then the thing is, it was right in front of her daughter.
Yes, it was very weird. There's a bunch of this, and there's one that's really, really, really super cringe later on that we get to. That is this weird sexual thing that, I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know why it's in there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so before Jody gets out, she asks Kenny, is this goodbye or good night? Kenny replies, I think that's up to you, which basically translates to if you sleep with me, it's good night. If you don't, it's goodbye.
Right.
Right. Jenny then sneaks into her house while her mom stays outside smoking, and so she tells her, quietly go upstairs.
It looked like mom was drunk. The way she was talking, she was drunk and stuff.
When Jody finally gets to her room, her dad is already there waiting for her. He immediately starts yelling about her being late and grounds her for the next 2 Fridays. She throws what Kenny said back at him about, 6th graders are able to stay out later than she can. And he fires back with something along the lines of, well, not every 6th grader is the sheriff's daughter or something like that. So this is where we find out that her dad is the sheriff. Then we have a weird scene that I was like, what is happening here? So we get to this scene. Jody is asleep. You see the clock. It's 3:30 in the morning. You hear a phone ring in the other room. You hear the dad answer, Sheriff Markham. He says, okay, I'll be down there as soon as I can. Now that part makes sense. It's clearly setting up what's coming next because they found the bodies. He's got to go and see what's going on at the crime scene. But this is when it gets weird. So then all of a sudden you see this hand come onto the screen and it's sticking straight out. So I'm like, is she sleepwalking? Because you know how when they make fun of sleepwalkers, they put their arms straight out, whatever, like a mummy. Right. So her hands straight out. And then she pushes back her curtains really slowly. And you can see her dad, leaving in his police car. And then you see her. And I was like, her eyes looked closed. And I was like, she is sleepwalking? I was like, but I couldn't tell if she was actually sleepwalking or maybe she kept her head straight, but just kept her eyes pointed down and it made her eyes look like they were closed. But then she slowly turns her head towards the viewer or the camera. Eyes are closed. And then no, wait a minute. She does say, Daddy. Sexy weirdness.
Yeah.
She turns her head, looks at the camera, opens her eyes, basically breaks the fourth wall because she's looking right at the camera. And then it cuts away. I'm like, what the fuck was that for? What was that all about? Why did we set it up like she's sleepwalking? And then what is that?
Yeah, the way this director and the writers did this, like I'm really questioning their intentions towards young girls. Yeah. Because there's some really awkwardness in this movie.
Yes. I should have looked to see what year it was. I feel like I know. It was a 2000 something, but
yeah, it was 2002 or 3, I think.
Yeah. So, but I was like, what the fuck is this shit? I guess she goes back to bed. I don't know. Her dad, of course, drove away.
Actually, it was 1999.
Okay. So now her dad is responding to the crime, but this is the part that I thought was weird too, because now it's morning. Now he left at 3:30 in the morning. I don't know how big his fucking jurisdiction is, but it's got to be the size of Texas because now the sun's up. I'm like, how long did it take him to fucking get to this crime scene? Because it was 3:30 in the morning. It was dark. It's nighttime, middle of the night, but it's daylight when he gets to the crime scene. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. He just has a big jurisdiction, I guess. So when he arrives, one of his deputies is already there. And this deputy, she seems to be his right-hand girl because she's with him all the time. She explains what they found. The boy, Rod, was discovered face down in the water near a waterfall and river. He had multiple stab wounds. The girl, Stacy, she was found, and they show her. She's positioned between 2 trees, and one of her arms is raised up and nailed to the tree. And there's a large amount of blood pooled beneath her, which tells them that what had occurred while she was still alive. So they were bothered by that. Then we cut back to Jody. She's getting ready for school. She heads out the door. At some point, she ends up walking up the steps of her school, and her best friend Timmy shows up, and he writes some kind of gossip column for an actual paper, I think, not just like a school paper. He's a really fast talker. He uses a lot of rapid fire slang and immediately assumes she knows what's going on. So he tells her he needs all the deets from her dad, even offers her a byline so it'll look good on her college applications. She has no idea what he's talking about. So he's like, "What? You haven't heard about Ron and Stacy?" And he tells her that they're dead. And he tells her that they're dead in like 10 different ways.
Right.
Like every possible way you can say dead says it. So then he tells her to look around. So she starts looking around and she notices that everybody's sad and holding on to each other and comforting each other. And then he points her head towards Kenny, who is now comforting some other girl already. So then Timmy runs off into the school and Jody's just standing there staring at Kenny. So then we have a scene where we're in the principal's office. And this is where, again, it's leaning into the sultry, sexy looks and suggestive smiles and whatever. So the secretary walks in and tells the principal that Sheriff Markham is there. And the principal, who's Tom, smiles like he's oddly pleased in a special kind of way.
Right.
And then tells her to send him in. And when the sheriff comes in, she's still hanging out in the doorway, but she's giving him these sexy eyes. And nothing comes of this. It's just something they decided to put in there for no reason whatsoever. Because we don't see those two hook up later. We never see her again.
Right.
Like, it's nothing. It's pointless. The sheriff and the principal are talking. And when they first initially see each other, Tom is the principal. He's like, "Oh, it's been a while." And I'm like, "Why has it been a while? I mean, you're the principal and he's the sheriff. You guys are both heads of something in this town." And they give off the feeling, they give off this feeling like it's a small town, but and his daughter goes to school there. Like how have they not seen each other? I don't know. It was weird. Oh, and Cherry Falls, by the way, is just outside of Richmond, Virginia, but it is still portrayed as though it's a small town. And there's something later that signifies how small it is, actually, for being just outside of Richmond. So anyway, they talk. Tom's saying a whole bunch of shit about how the classes are canceled, but all the kids are still at school. They stay there.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then he's asking the teachers to be there and talk to the students to help them process what happens. And the sheriff doesn't care. He's like, "I just want to talk to the students who knew Ron and Stacy. I want to go to their classes." So then we go to the English class, and this is where we get an introduction to a vast majority of the characters in this movie. The teacher, Mr. Marlston, who is played by Jay Moore, is sitting on his desk trying to have an open discussion about what happened. He says some students might feel upset, others might not. One girl breaks down crying because years earlier in like the 8th grade, she told Rod to go away and she hopes he dies. And now she feels guilty. And then some of the kids snicker and then the teacher shuts that down. But in this scene, this is where we meet, well, of course, we have Jody. She's in this class. Her friend looks like probably one of her closest friends, Sandy, who's sitting right next to her. Then we have Mark, who we find out was a close friend of Rod's, and seems like he's high all the time. He was kind of adult. And then Ben, who is Mark's sarcastic bestie. There's this other girl, Cindy, and she's like one of the popular girls. She makes a comment about how she wants to see this guy fried in an electric chair. And then JD Qualls is in it, and he's like kind of a nerdy kid. But there's a lot of people in this movie that I was surprised to see in this movie, because even the sheriff is played by Michael Bain. And I was like, I mean, granted, he hasn't done much high profile shit since Terminator, but still, I was like, wow, all these people are in this movie. Interesting. How'd this happen? So they're discussing, and then the sheriff comes in with the principal. He just basically says, if anybody knows anything, let us know. Then we go to lunch. So at lunch, Jody and Sandy are sitting together and they're watching Kenny with another girl. Sandy has a crush on Mark, and she's watching him eat, and he's eating like an idiot. He's like all bent over his bowl of chips and just putting his face in it and picking the chips up with his tongue, and she's mesmerized. So Sandy,
well, it's sexy.
Yeah. So Jody, of course, notices that she's staring at him, and she's like, "You've been staring at him all year. Let's just go over there and talk to him." And she's reluctant. She doesn't want to do it, but she convinces her and forces her to go. So they go sit down with Mark and Ben at their table, and they're just chit-chatting and having casual conversation when all of a sudden some girl comes storming into the cafeteria, finds this other guy, starts yelling and screaming at him and hitting him and all this stuff. And her name is Annette. And Annette is pissed off at this guy because this guy is telling everybody in the school that she gave him a Hummer. So,
and he's like, that's a compliment if a guy tells you that.
Right.
Because he's like, you're good or something. Yeah.
So then the principal and Mr. Marlston, the English teacher, break it up. The principal takes Annette to the office. And then we just have a quick shot where Jody asks the others at the table what's going on. And Ben says, tells her that the Hummer thing. And she's like, oh, do you think she really did it? And Ben says something along the lines like, she thinks fellatio is a Shakespeare character. Then we get this quick shot of someone's hands with red fingernails sharpening knives. And this is just a foreshadowing shot. It lasts only a few seconds.
But and let's comment on the fact that the hands did not look feminine.
Right. Yeah. They were lighter, heavier, feminine.
Yes.
The nails made the tips of the fingers look feminine. The rest, not so much. Then we go to Annette's house, and her parents are heading out for the night. Someone with long, dark hair is watching from outside in their car. The parents leave. They go, we see a scene for no reason of them. Like, we need to know where they're going. They go to a bar. Like we need to know this. And then all of a sudden, you're inside the house. There's a knock at the door. Annette goes to the door. She has it locked with a chain. Annette's like, hello, who is it? And the person claims to be her mother's friend. She gives the name Laura Lee Sherman. She's like, and she's like, oh, my mom's not here. She went out. And Laura Lee's like, oh, it must have been some misunderstanding. She's like, can I just leave her a note? And you can tell the whole time Annette's a little apprehensive, but then she's like, oh, well, it's just some lady. It'll probably be fine. So she opens the door. Dumb. And as soon as she opens the door, because this person attacks immediately, like they attacked Rod immediately as soon as they got out of the car.
Yeah, there's no waiting.
Yeah, there's no surprise. And then a reaction. I mean, she opens that door and she just starts slamming the door on Annette's head. Just bam, 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 bam. And then we cut to the parents showing up the house, obviously very drunk. Like they are so drunk. Their car's swerving as they're pulling up. They're barely getting up the steps to the front door. But then they notice the door is open. So they go in. They're like, Annette. They start to sober up pretty quickly when they realize that there's something wrong. And then the mom walks into a room. It's blood everywhere. And she screams. So then...
let's just point out the fact that Annette had about 4 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
It was like one of those characters that came in and left, and there's no reason why they should have done that. They could have used another character that was in the movie a little longer.
Right.
To give it some sort of oomph.
Yeah,
but
her only setup was the fight in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
And then it immediately goes to her murder.
Yeah. So, and that was it. It
wasn't like a main character. It cuts to this really strange scene where the sheriff is showing Jody self-defense moves. He shows her a maneuver. She tries it on him. They get tangled up and she falls. And he falls directly on top of her. And they just kind of stare at each other really close and in a super uncomfortable way that no daughter and father should be looking at each other.
Right.
This position. Because she's on the floor on her back. And it's almost like when you have two people who are actually a couple or almost a couple, like they're flirting around and they are goofing off and they fall down and the guy falls on top of the girl and they're really close.
Like, oh,
and then they kiss because of the situation. That's exactly like it was. And I was like, why are they doing this? Why are we doing this at all? This is so weird.
Yeah.
But thank God we are saved by the bell because the phone rings. Phew. So he hops up. And then she lays there and they show her and she kind of looks almost disappointed. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is so weird. So the sheriff gets the call about Annette's murder and immediately leaves. When he arrives at the house, we finally get to see Annette's body. She's been tied up to some sort of wagon wheel that's mounted on the ceiling. The FBI is there and they start talking about similarities between this murder and the earlier one with Rod and Stacy. So then the next scene, we see the sheriff and his deputy. They're at the morgue and they're talking to the medical examiner. And he explains that the word virgin was carved into the inside of the thighs of all three victims, Rod and Stacy, as well as Annette. And he confirms that both girls were actually virgins. He says he can't, of course, be certain about Rod because you can't tell the guy.
Right.
But none of them engaged in any sex prior to being killed.
He hasn't had sex recently.
Right. Yeah. So he points out that whoever is doing this somehow knows who is and isn't a virgin, which means they have a very specific method of choosing their victims, and they're good at it, apparently.
And I also have to point out the fact that I think I heard the word hymen more in this scene than I have my entire life.
Right. Yeah, in this whole movie, because they talk about later on, they say, Stacy says it's a hymen holocaust.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, they say hymen a lot. Then, once he realizes that virgins are being murdered, the sheriff decides to go home and he goes into Jody's room and she's in bed asleep. and he wakes her up, and he, in a awkward roundabout way, basically asks her if she's still a virgin. And she says, yes, of course. And he kind of pauses and has a face. And so she asks him if he's disappointed that she's a virgin. I laughed so hard at that part. I was like, what? Okay. So he says, no, of course not. You're still my little girl, which, okay. Still weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Very weird.
So then the sheriff is talking to his deputy. It's like the next day, I guess. The time in this movie is weird. So the sheriff is then, we see him talking to his deputy. He tells her he wants to call a town meeting for all the parents, but no kids, and to have it at the school gym. She questions whether it's smart to reveal the killer's signature, because then it makes it hard to figure out. Because if people know what the signature is, you could have copycats or whatever, or people will know and you can't discern who's who.
Right.
But he decides, we're going to tell them anyway, specifically that virgin children are being targeted. Then we go back to the school where Jody goes into her English class, and school's over. And so she goes into the English classroom to hand in a paper that apparently she could not hand in during class. I don't know why. She and her teacher, Mr. Marlston, have this really uncomfortable, flirty exchange where they recite, who do they recite? Anyway, some poet. I want to say Emerson, but it's not. Oh, T.S. Eliot. So they recite T.S. Eliot. She starts, and then he joins in, and they recite it together at the same time. It was very weirdly romantic.
Oh, it was.
So while they're talking, Jody looks over the door. Teacher's like, what? And she's like, I think I saw someone in the hallway. She runs to go follow, and he's like, no, no, no. So they walk together. At some point, they start holding hands. I was like,
yeah.
Why? Why are we doing this? But it was like off and on. Like they would hold hands and they would stop. Then they would hold hands and then they would stop. But they end up walking through the halls and down into the cafeteria. The cafeteria, of course, lights are off, but there's still some light coming in from the windows. He tells her to stay put. He walks further into the cafeteria. He finds a crushed out cigarette, and then he picks it up and then he tosses it. And when he tosses it, it hits a boot. And there's obviously someone wearing this boot. And the boot has a marking on it on the outer toe area near the pinky. And it's a big boot, and it had like these 4 squares. They were white and they were together in a way that looked like a diamond, but they were 4 individual squares. So it was very distinctive, and they made sure they pointed it out. He doesn't look any further. He goes back to where Jody's standing, and they walk out of the room, and then they show another shot of the boot, and the boot moves. So that way, you know, there's somebody actually in the boot. Then they go out in the hallway, and he's like, well, I got to go to this meeting your dad's having. And she then is like, can we talk again? And he's like, yeah, of course. And she's like, no, just the 2 of us. and he gets a little awkward. Like you can tell he knows it's kind of awkward, and he kind of turns and he fumbles around with his hands. He's like, yeah, that's fine. That's okay. Sure. So he's like, now you just go on home. And so she runs off. Then we see the parents are filing into the high school gym. And this is where it really feels like Cherry Falls is not a big town, because all of these parents fit into one section of bleachers on one side of the gym.
Yes.
It's not like they're filling up the whole gym with tons of seats. So it's not a big town. So the principal, Tom, as the people are filing in, he goes up to the sheriff and he tells him, you can't seriously tell these parents that a killer is targeting virgins. And he says,
so weird.
He says, the sheriff, you as a sheriff, you have responsibilities. And the sheriff snaps back and says, they both know what it's like to walk away from responsibilities. Very clear foreshadowing.
Right. But I also want to say that, is this really a conversation you should have in the high school gym?
And they're not. Oh, the whole thing, or the conversation just between the principal and the sheriff.
The whole thing.
Oh, the whole thing. Yeah.
I feel like this would be like a town hall sort of meeting, or unless like the town is so small that they don't have a community center that they have to use the gym for everything.
Yeah, they must, I guess, because originally the deputy was like, we don't have a facility big enough to hold the whole town. And he was like, well, it's just going to be parents for one, and we'll just do it in the gym. And it's obviously not a big town, even though it took him 3 hours to get to the crime scene. But whatever.
Right.
And he hasn't seen the principal in years, apparently.
Right.
So then he's basically says, fuck off to the principal. I've got to do this. We got to let him know. It's dire. Oh, the principal does say, if you tell the parents that they're killing virgins, we're going to have a fuck fest on our hands. So Tom warns him about the chaos that's going to erupt and that it's going to be panic. And the sheriff says, that's better than a pile of dead teenagers.
Yeah. Like they're encouraging like a sex party for the teenagers. Like,
right.
What the hell?
Very much, and later on, there's another scene where you can tell he very much does not care that there's going to be a giant sex party, or that there could be a giant sex party. I'm getting ahead of myself. So now we see Jody, who is upstairs. So the gymnasium is, it's a big gym, and of course it's high, so it takes up 2 floors. And on the outer part of the gymnasium, the upper floors are there, and there's windows that aren't really windows. They just have these grates or whatever in front of them. So Jody's upstairs looking down through this grated window that overlooks the gym. Her friend Timmy shows up and surprises her, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I gotta get the scoop." They're watching as the sheriff announces that all the victims were virgins. And so parents are starting to question. One parent asks, "Am I supposed to just lock my daughter in the basement?" And another parent makes a comment about, "Oh, you don't have to worry about your daughter."
Yeah, I know.
And so the first parent's like, "What is that supposed to mean?" And he gets up, and this whole brawl takes place. So there's all this chaos. All the parents are fighting, and the entire meeting just devolves into parents yelling and screaming. And the sheriff just stands there, does nothing, like lets it just go on.
It doesn't even try to calm it down. No. Hey, let's get
forever.
Yeah.
So
he's not very effective.
No, he just stands there like a doofus. So of course Timmy's like all excited. He's like, he starts taking pictures, although the pictures he takes he's like 3 feet away from the window. So it's not like he's just taking a picture of the window. It's not down looking at the people down there fighting. And then he needs to use his phone, but he doesn't have, his battery's almost dead. So he asks to use Jody's phone, and she's worried that she won't get her phone back. He's like, "It'll just be a second. I got to use the phone. I got to call this in." So he gets on the phone. He's talking to whoever. He's like, "It's hard to hear you. I don't have a good signal. Let me go out somewhere where I can find a signal." And then finally we do see the sheriff yell at everybody to calm down, but then that's it. Jody's just watching, and she's like, "Oh, daddy." She says daddy a lot.
She does. And it's not like father-daughter sort of daddy.
No.
That she's in the way that she's saying it.
Yeah. She could be like, "Oh, geez, dad." No, she's like, "Daddy." So after she watches for a little while as her dad is failing to control the crowd, she decides to go find Timmy to get her phone back. So she goes down the same door that he went down. Of course, he's been gone for a bit, so she doesn't know exactly where he went. But she just goes down the stairs, and as she goes down, it gets darker and darker. She wanders down through this hallway, and she ends up in a locker room. And she's walking through the locker room, and there's all these, showers, and there's a bunch of curtains, and she's pulling back each curtain. And then she gets to one curtain, and she almost pulls that curtain back, and she hears the phone ring. She's like, "Oh, is that for me?" So then she walks down the corridor a little bit further, and then we get this long shot on the shower curtain she didn't pull back, then nothing. So then we go over to around the corner, and she sees this locker, and it has the word virgin carved into it. So she opens it. Timmy's dead. He falls out.
Oh no.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was devastated. So he falls out onto her, and her phone falls out. She grabs it. She's screaming, of course. She runs out the door into a little hallway, then to another door. When she opens that door, the bad guy's there. So she screams again. She takes off up the stairs. She's running through the halls. There's this whole thing where she's running and running. Then he basically catches up to her. They get a little bit entangled, fall down. They get back up. It looks like she's trying to use her dad move that he taught her. Doesn't really work out. He slams her into a locker and knocks her out. Then we see him take her and carry her into the most well-equipped science room I've ever seen. I don't know how students even fit in there. There was so much shit in that room. But it was a really cool room. I would love to have a science room like that when I was a kid. But he takes her in there. He then lays her down. He switches knives, and he takes out, his special virgin carving knife.
Well, you don't have that? I have a paring knife, a chef knife, a virgin knife, a bread knife.
I gotta get with it. So he pulls out the knife, and he likes to write virgin on the inner thigh of his victims. So he starts to write the V, which of course triggers Jody to wake up. She knocks him back with her, she kicks him back. They rumble, and she's crawling all over desks and up. She gets higher and higher in the air. And there's this big shark that's hanging on a wire, or a couple wires. And she finds a box cutter, and she slices through one of the wires, and the shark goes down and swings and knocks him into not a fish tank, but like almost a small glass arboretum. Like it has like plants in it or something. And it looks like he's knocked out. So she's able to get out of the room. She's running down the hall. And of course, when she turns the corner, somebody's there. So she's like, ah, and she's going to stab them. Well, it's her dad. So she yells, she's like, they're in that room. They're in that room. So the dad puts her with the deputy. The dad goes in the room. And of course, the killer is gone. They made it out a window. And he stares out the window for a while. You can hear someone running. He doesn't tell anybody to go out there and get them. He just stares out the window. Like, good job. You're doing a great job at this. Then we go to the police station and they want Jody to give a description of the attacker as they draw up a composite on the computer. As this composite starts coming together and everybody's standing around. Her dad's there, the deputy, the FBI. They're all standing around. And it starts to become clear. You can see that the sheriff is bothered by this face that's coming together, as though he might recognize it. But when the deputy asks him directly if he recognizes her, he says no. Then some kid bursts into the main part of the police station, demanding that he's the killer. And apparently this kid comes in and confesses to everything that goes on in town because they're used to him.
And just completely at random, too. Like, we don't know who this guy is. He just shows up. Starts confessing, and he tries to, what? I couldn't tell if he was trying to bite the cop or kiss the cop.
Probably kiss. It's this movie.
Right.
Sexy eyes. So he's just like a weird scene transition. I'm guessing they're using it as a way to get everybody out of the sheriff's office because that's where they all are to go deal with this guy, which just leaves the sheriff and Jody. But it was really kind of dumb. Like they could have found another way to do it. It was pointless.
Oh, absolutely. This whole movie was weird.
Yeah. So after everybody leaves the office to go deal with this nut guy, the sheriff tells Jody, your mom's on her way. I have to go into, well, actually he goes into his office. I'm not sure whose office this was, but his office is right next to this space. So he goes into his office because he has to make a phone call. So Jody's just sitting there and she's looking at him as he's making this phone call. And then we see what he's saying. He's called the principal and he's like, are you alone? And the principal's like, yeah. And
with this movie, you don't know what that means.
So he's like, I'm going to fax you something. And so he faxes the composite drawing. And he's like, do you recognize that person? The principal's like, maybe. And he's like, it's Laura Lee Sherman. And he's like, doesn't that look like Laura Lee Sherman to you? And then Tom, the principal, he's like, my God, she's been missing for 25 years. Nobody's heard from her. Why would she suddenly show up now as some sort of psycho killer? So, yeah, these two clearly share a whole secret history together, and they both know exactly who Laura Lee Sherman is, and we have yet to figure out who this is, but they're tied to her in some way.
The principal has way too much going on with law enforcement at this point.
Yeah. Now they haven't seen each other in years, so now they're like talking like they've known each other forever, which they apparently have.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like Murder, She Wrote, when Angela Lansbury's character was like involved with like all this police stuff, but she's just a fucking author.
Right. And no matter where she goes.
Right. And this movie, it's like, the guy's a principal, but he seems to be like really vested in law enforcement. He's the go-to guy.
But only now.
Right.
Before, who's the sheriff? I don't know.
Like, I have no idea who you are. I haven't seen you in a long time. And now they're best buds.
Yeah. So while this conversation is going on, Jody, of course, is watching her dad. She decides he's acting weird, which I don't know. I mean, he's the sheriff. I mean, I would think, he's allowed to call somebody on the phone because he wants to put something out maybe about this attacker. Like, I don't know what's so weird about what he's doing, but she thinks it's weird. So she picks up the receiver on the desk that she's at and she eavesdrops and she does hear a brief part of the conversation and she hears the name Laura Lee Sherman. And then her dad notices her and she hangs up really fast. So then he comes in, freaked out, crazed. Were you listening to me? What did you hear? So she just plays it off like, nothing. I was just trying to call mom and couldn't figure out how to get the line that goes out. And so now it's all way too tense for a normal phone call. But anyway, a lot of panicky energy. Not suspicious at all. So then Sandy shows up. So the sheriff steps away to go still deal with this loud guy that's in the station who's still yelling and carrying on about being the killer as Sandy comes into where Jody was sitting and she sits down. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Everybody's talking about it. We're so worried about you. And then she drops the big news that word got out that the killer is targeting virgins. So now all the teens have decided the logical response is to throw a giant lose your virginity party.
Basically an orgy.
Yes. At one point, Sandy even says, "You just need a floor big enough."
Yeah.
So Jody's like, "Ew, don't you want your first time to be with someone special? You're making this sound like it's a flu shot." And Sandy's basically trying to Sandy's basically just trying to pitch it like, this is how you save your life. You lose your virginity, and also don't let Kenny lose his virginity to that other girl. So these are Sandy's priorities now. So then Jody's mom shows up.
Well, maybe the idea is that she's fucking Ken vicariously through his daughter.
Well, this is Sandy, her best friend.
Oh, Sandy, her best friend.
Yeah, this is not her mom yet.
See, this is where this movie brings me. This is where this movie fucking brings me.
Yeah, that'd be super extra special weird.
I swear to God, this movie would have been better as a porn.
Right.
Because the story is just as flimsy as theirs.
Right, yeah. Next thing you know, pizza guy walks in. Someone has a problem with their plumbing in this police station. It's crazy. Anyway, so that's not true. That's just the porn version. So Jody's mom shows up, ready to take her home. And Jody's like, actually, I'm thinking about going to school with Sandy. So this is when I get, because the time in this movie was so confusing. So the thing that happened at the school happened after 6 p.m. because 6 p.m. was the time that they had the meeting with the parents.
Yes.
And so it was nighttime. All that stuff had to happen. It was probably probably 7:30, almost 8 o'clock. They just waited till the next day to take her to the police station and get her composite. They didn't take her immediately while she still had it fresh in her head. Or did they take her and school's still open? Like, what? It was weird. I hated the way they dealt with time in this movie. So she was like, I was thinking about going to school with Sandy. The sheriff comes in and he shuts that down immediately. He's like, no, you're going home with your mother. Jody argues that she just wants to see her friends. And Sandy's like, she'll be safe with us. And then the deputy walks in and does this weird, sultry little, I'll keep an eye on her, sheriff. What? Okay.
Yeah. This movie, it was very weird. That's why I'm saying, like, I really think, because sometimes Hollywood, they'll have like a stack of scripts and they'll go through them or whatever. Uh-huh. I really think that they took this script and looked at it and said, oh, this was made for porn, but I think this would be better as a feature film. So we're just going to take this and shoot it as is, but we're going to make it a regular movie.
Right. Because everybody talks like it's sexual. It's so strange.
Hey, Daddy. Hey, I can take care of her. Oh, your headlights are on. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it was 99. There was a different time, but it wasn't this bad.
Right. In my notes, I have, when she says this, I'll keep an eye on her, sheriff. I said, like she's auditioning for a very different kind of movie. So Jody and Sandy end up going to the school. She gets her way and she goes to school. As they walk in, they see a big memorial banner for the 4 dead kids. Then the bell rings and kids start to flood the hallway. They see Jody. They swarm her like she's a celebrity that survived something. Her English teacher is stuck behind the crowd, Mr. Marlston, and he's like trying to get through and get to her. And she like walks by, and because all these kids are all over her, and she's like waving at him. It's a really stupid moment. And then as they're walking along, all of a sudden a hand reaches out. It's Kenny, and he grabs and pulls her near. And then it's funny because if you watch the kids behind her who were all around her, they all kind of go, oh, and shrug and walk away.
Yeah, who cares?
Like, we had her, now he's got her. So he pulls her in and he says, oh my God, I thought I lost you. I couldn't have lived without you. And basically he's just like, come with me tonight to the big everyone lose their virginity party.
Right. That's his way in, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, you have to now. So Jody says she can't because she told her dad she'd be going home right after school. Kenny gets a little defensive and he's like, well, if you don't want to go with me, just say so. Don't blame your dad. Okay. She repeats that she really has to be home. Then he notices the sheriff's deputy hanging about. She's like, I don't know, 8 or 9 lockers down, just hanging out, watching. He's like, who's that? And Jody says, that's my bodyguard. He's like, oh. So Jody tells him that she has to be home by 3. And he's still like, but you'll come with me later, right? And she says, she'll think about it with this, her head's tilted down and her eyes are up and wide and open. And she's like grinning. And he gets instantly happy and does this little, he turns around, walks off, does a leprechaun leap and clicks his heels together and runs off. As she giggles about it. So I wonder if that was like a direction. Okay, now turn around, walk down the hallway, jump up, click your heels together. Great. All right. So now the kids are planning their night. And Cindy, who's the popular snotty girl, decides that she's going to educate all the girls on what's about to happen. So she's out on the school lawn and she's standing up on these steps or this bleachers or something. And all the girls are huddled down on the ground around her. And they're all like looking up at her in awe. And
the queen is speaking.
Right. So she basically turns it into a sex ed apocalypse edition. And she's like, men are horrible at sex. It's going to suck. And all the girls are questioning her about like contraception, if they're going to have orgasms. And she's like, fuck no. And yes, contraception, but you're going to have to provide it. So everybody's asking all these questions and it's whatever. So then we cut to Mark and Ben and some other guy who's sitting in the back seat of their car, and they're smoking pot. And the discussion, of course, is the dumbest possible version of a teenage boy's sex logic. You know, they're talking about, he asked me, are there really 3 holes or something? And they joke about holes and then how they have to, after this is over, they need to find someone who kills only girls that don't give blowjobs. So, you know, that kind of conversation is going on. Right. Then we see a news reporter. So he's outside at the bottom of the steps of the school. And he's reporting on the fact that the teenagers are planning a giant sex party. And as we see the reporter, we also get cuts of the principal inside the school. And he's watching the news report because it's apparently live. And he's got a flyer. The reporter's got a flyer. And it's a Pop Your Cherry party. And they are going to have it at a secret location. But everybody knows the location is because this town isn't very big, apparently. But this location is some old hunting lodge, which is a nice fucking hunting lodge, by the way. It was
a very nice
house. I was thinking like a little cabin in the woods. No. So the news reporter is out there and he's, you know, talking and all this other stuff about what's going on. And then the bell rings and everybody comes out. You know, they all leave their classrooms. They're all acting like it's the last day of school. They're throwing papers in the air. They're all screaming and hooting and hollering and woohoo, we're about to get laid. And they're all running outside. They run down the front steps and all the girls grab the news reporter and basically start practically tearing his clothes off. They're kissing him. They've got him down on the ground. Then all the kids are jumping on cars and they're shaking the news van. It gets totally crazy and out of control. It's very silly.
And they're supposed to be just having sex so they don't die.
Right. I'm guessing they're all virgins. And they're super excited. Like, finally, we can do it and have a reason.
And shaking this car is going to make us do it better.
Right. And then we cut to Jody's mom, who's at home baking the worst batch of cookies ever because she's obviously an alcoholic. That is her other only vice that she's got left.
Yes.
Because she's got a whole bottle of, looks like Jameson whiskey, and she's got the newscast on, and she's watching that. She's got a pile of burnt cookies on a cookie sheet. So as she's there watching this and drinking, Jody comes home, and her mom hugs her, and they talk about what a weird day it must have been at school. Jody tries to take a bite of a cookie, and her mom's like, "Oh, those are burnt. Don't eat those." Then she's like, "Let me get you some water." So she pours her a glass of water from the sink, and then just stands there and drinks it herself. She never gives it to Jody. Which I thought was hilarious and very on brand for this mom.
Yes.
So they're talking about what's going on. And then Jody decides to ask her mom about Laura Lee Sherman. So her mom looks surprised. You can see it on her face. Like she's shocked to hear the name. But she acts like she doesn't know the name at all. Jody says, "Well, I heard Dad talking to the principal and he said that she disappeared 25 years ago. Wouldn't that be small town news? Like, wouldn't you guys notice and have a big thing about it?" And her mom's like, "Well, I've lived here my whole life and I've never heard of her." Then she tries to shut it down and tells Jody to go lay down and rest. And it's been a long, hard day. So Jody agrees and acts like she's going to her room, but then waits for her mom to turn around to drink some more whiskey and quietly sneaks out, which I'm sure is not hard to do.
I do have to say this scene was very reminiscent of Nightmare on Elm Street when Nancy was asking her mom about Freddy.
Yes. I was sitting there, I was like, God, this feels so familiar. That's what it is. Okay. You're right. So then we cut to the sheriff at his office loading bullets into his gun. Not just any gun, his gun, I'm going to assume. His deputy comes in and he tells her he's going to West Virginia. She's like, "West Virginia? We need you here. Everything is on fire."
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what was in West Virginia.
Laura Lee Waters. I mean, Laura Lee Waters. Giving her a different name. Laura Lee Sherman is in West Virginia because he did say earlier on that last he'd heard her from. He was talking to the principal. He said the last he'd seen she was living in West Virginia, so that's why he's going there.
Okay, I guess I missed that part because West Virginia was like, what? Why? Like, where? I couldn't tell if he was coming from West Virginia or if he was going to. I had no idea. I just knew West Virginia was in there, and I didn't know why. And it would have been on brand for the movie to just say, "Hey, I'm going to West Virginia," with no explanation.
But it would be more like, I'm going to West Virginia.
Right.
But they live in Virginia. So they're in Virginia outside of Richmond. He's going 3 hours away to West Virginia. So she's like all freaking out because there's so much going on. He's like, yeah, there's something I have to do. That's what he says to her. And she's like, fine. And then she reminds him about the big party tonight. He's like, a party? What party? And she explains the party. And he's like, do you know where it is? And she's like, no, it's a big secret. Everybody knows.
Yeah. And and the way this whole thing is going, it feels like that he's asking because he wants to get some, not because he wants to break it up.
I may not go to West Virginia. So so she says she'll find out where it is, and she asks what she should do, and he says to just treat it like any other party. If something happens, go in, otherwise leave it alone. So again, he's like very nonchalant about the giant sex party. He doesn't care if all the kids are having sex. He's fine with it. But he also tells her that he might be gone a while. So then we see Jody at the local library, and she's on the microfilm machine, and she's going through the Cherry Post, trying to find information on Laura Lee Sherman. And then, of course, when she finally gets to the tiny little article about her, she hears a strange noise. So she looks down the long library aisle, and then she gets up, grabs a small bust statue, and starts walking through the aisles. And she's walking through the aisles backwards.
Before you go too far, because of this movie, I completely forgot about microfiche.
Yeah.
And how all that stuff works and everything. Because I'm looking at it, I'm like, why does she have a spool of film? And then she starts using it on the microfiche machine, whatever that was called.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, I chose to call it. I know we called it microfiche, but I chose to call it microfilm because I didn't know if anybody would know what microfiche was. But it was this big, huge thing that you had a big screen that was opaque and weird, and you'd put the film in this other part and it would shoot the film up, and you would see what was in old periodicals or whatever.
Yeah, books, whatever.
Yeah. This was all pre-internet, I guess, back in 1999. So she starts walking down in between all the bookshelves, and she's walking backwards because she only cares what's behind her and not what's actually behind her now, so she's walking backwards.
Right.
And as she's walking through, she knows that there's somebody there. She can hear stuff. She's starts to get tense and fast, and she can feel that somebody's there. I don't know why she didn't just try to find her way out of the library instead of getting in between all these bookcases. But then all of a sudden, there's something behind her. She bumps into it. She turns around and screams. It's her mom. And her mom absolutely fucking loses it. Full volume in the library, no less, yelling and screaming. And she's yelling at her, what are you doing here? Why are you at the library? What? The library?
Why aren't you at the sex party?
Right. She's just going off because she's at the library.
And the thing is, you're supposed to be quiet in the library, and Mom is not respecting the rules.
But they seem to be the only ones there. I didn't even see a library.
That's true.
So Jody's like, okay then. And then they end up at a table still in the library. And she's like, tell me about Laura Lee Sherman. Tell me right now. So they sit down, and her mom is whispering now, but she talks about how Laura Lee Sherman was a girl who said she was raped by a group of high school seniors. And Jody's like, okay, yeah. And she's like, well, they weren't prosecuted. Nothing happened. She's like, why weren't they prosecuted? And she's like, because they were good kids from a good home and a good family, and they were star football players, the same small town shit. So she was like, well, who was it? Who was it, Mom? And she's like, well, there were two guys that as soon as it happened, after it happened, they left town. She's like, okay. And who were the other two guys? And she's like, one was the principal. She's like, the principal? And she's like, yeah. She's like, well, there was one more. Who was the other one? Her mom was like, oh.
I can't remember.
She's like, who was it, Mom? Who was it? And she starts yelling at her mom, who was it? So finally your mom starts crying and she's like, okay, he was your dad, but he was so drunk he basically passed out. He didn't rape her. And so then, of course, she's all upset and like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? So now Jody's all devastated to find out that Daddy is a baddie. Then she also finds out that Laura Lee did go to the police. They didn't do anything about it because of the good kids, good families, football, blah, blah, blah. And basically they were just, small town protection system fully engaged. Because she was supposedly also kind of a weird girl. So that matters. So then we cut back to Sheriff Markham, who is now in West Virginia, and what he thinks is Laura Lee Sherman's house. And it's this old falling down house in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere. He goes in with his gun drawn. And the house is a wreck. It's old and decayed, falling apart, creepy. He barely looks around. He looks in one room, and then he immediately decides, yep, let's go in the basement. Doesn't look at any other part of the house. Just immediately to the basement, because that's how it always is.
It's always the safest place.
Yeah. He goes down, and it's, of course, got that whole nightmare vibe. But there's a crib and a rocking chair. There's also chains hanging from the ceiling, some stuff that looks like some weird bondage shit going on.
Yeah.
Like, why is this here with the baby crib? What are we doing? This is a weird baby room dungeon setup we got going on here. Very strange. He walks around a little bit. He goes over to the crib, and there's a blanket that he can tell is covering something up. And you can tell that by the way he's worried that there's actually some child underneath this blanket. But when he pulls it back, it's just a doll. So then he stands there and he's like, yeah, this is weird. Kind of looking around. You can tell that it's strange, but he doesn't find anybody. He feels that it's off, but then he decides he's going to leave. And of course, as he's walking out, you see a shot from inside the house through the doorway at him walking to his police car. And then we see the side of a long-haired figure kind of step into frame, barely there, but they're there, and they watch him leave. Spooky. So then his deputy radios him just as he gets to the car and tells him the principal wants to meet him that evening to talk about Laura Lee Sherman. He's like, okay, I'll look into it. And then we jump to Kenny's house. So Kenny's up in his room and he's playing the guitar. And we see Jody show up outside on her bicycle and she waves and he's like all excited. And he's like, oh, you're early, and has her come in. So they're laying on the bed and he's on one end of the bed. She's on the other end of the bed. Her legs are on top of him.
This was so weird too. All I can say about this is this movie was so weird.
Yeah, that's the word of the day for this movie. Weird. So she's got her feet basically up on his chest and his face kind of, and they're talking and she's talking about how she just found out her parents suck and her dad's a hypocrite and that she can't believe that she's let her parents run her life and she's made every decision based on her parents her whole life and blah blah blah, and she's super pissed off about it, but it's got her in the mood, right?
Yeah.
As she's sitting there, they show Kenny's boot, and it's the same boot that we saw in the cafeteria earlier.
Oh no.
So we now think Kenny's the bad guy. So she takes his boot off, and as they're talking, she tells him out of nowhere to bite her toe, her big toe. So she shoves it in his mouth, and he bites on it, and she's pushing around. She's like, bite it harder.
Yeah, I don't understand why her toe was in his mouth at that point. I'm not a foot guy. I'm not a foot guy. I can't stand feet, and that part was just like disgusting to me.
But at some point, how much harder can you get before he starts breaking skin and biting it off? Like, because she's
right.
Like, harder. And he's like, okay. And she starts taking her other foot and slapping him in the face. She's like, harder. And finally she slaps him a little too hard, and he spits her toe out of his mouth, and he's like disgusted, and he's like, what the fuck, Jody?
Well, I mean, that's how you turn somebody on, is by making them suck your toe and bite it and kick them in the face. Haven't you ever tried that?
All the time. That's the only thing I do. What are we talking about here? This is easy. He seems appalled and upset by this, but she sits up, climbs over top of him. She's kneeling over his waist, and she's got her legs around his hips. And she takes her shirt off and she's like, let's do it. And he's like, yeah. So she's all into, kissing him and doing whatever. But then he stops her and he says that the only reason that she wants to do it right now is because she's mad at her parents. And she gets upset about this. She's like, what? Don't you love me? Don't you love my body? And he's like, yes, I love your body. I love you. But I want you to want me because you actually want me, not because you're angry and pissed off. So now we have a total role reversal where Kenny now is the I want it to be a special moment kind of guy. And she's like, let's fuck. Like right now. Come on, bite my toes off.
Right, bite my toes off.
I don't want to walk tomorrow. Not because the sex was so hard, but because you took my toes.
I want you to make me walk funny.
Right. Bite my feet. So then she gets pissed and irritated, and she puts her shirt back on and backs off, and then she gets like that kind of almost like a sexy vixen. I don't know how to explain it, but she's suddenly like she's a mature woman kind of thing. I don't know. It's a weird thing she suddenly gets into because she backs off and she's like, this is stupid. I'm leaving. I have somebody else I can, go hang out with. And he's like, you found better, you have better company. And she's like, yeah, maybe I do. And I'm not going to that stupid kid's sex party. And he's like, he's like, well, do you have somebody else in mind? And she's like, maybe. And he's like, Mr. Marliston, or I never get his name right, Mr. Marliston. And she's like, why would you say that? How do you know? Like, and he's like, I've seen you with him. And then she snaps and makes it into a whole thing. Oh, you're spying on me? But she's saying it in a very coy manner. Right. She's like, do I have to start looking for you around every corner? And then she's like, I didn't know you had such a sick mind. Like, girl, you just had your toes in his mouth and you were asking him to basically bite them off. What are you talking
about? Right. And you're admitting slightly that you want to have sex with your teacher.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So then she puts her jacket on and she goes to leave. He grabs her from behind, trying to hug her, and she twists out of it. And as she's running out the door, he yells, if you leave now, you can never come back. And it's over. And that was that. So then we go back to Sheriff Markham. He goes to the school, to the principal's office. It's late in the evening. He walks in, goes inside, opens the principal's office door, and you can tell by his face that something's wrong. So he slowly walks over to the principal. You then see the principal's face, and on his forehead it writes "Virgin Not," and that was carved into his forehead, and now he's dead. So as he's looking at him, out of nowhere, someone comes behind the sheriff and swings something, hits him in the back of the head, and knocks him out cold. So then we jump to the party. Now, this party that apparently nobody knows where it is, the cops are all over the place. Yeah. The cops are everywhere. They've set up a perimeter to protect these virgin kids. It's like, okay. So the kids are all piling into this huge hunting lodge. There's a big bonfire going. Cops are basically there just to keep the peace, I guess, while this whole teen chaos, pop your cherry party is going on. Inside,
and there's a big banner. As I recall, it was a big banner.
Yeah, the popular prom.
Yeah, nobody knows where it is, but
nope, nobody. Big secret. So basically, at this point, the movie does a little tour through the house. It's slow music. Kids are slowly dancing. They're talking. They're hanging out. They're starting to pair off, figuring out who's going with who. They're all coupling up for this, weird end of the world prom thing, or saving us from the end of the world prom thing. Sandy finds Mark. They start dancing. At some point, they end up making out. Ben is hanging out with a super cool, popular chick that was giving everybody pointers. And she's basically negotiating with him about what she's going to get out of this business deal. And he ultimately gives in by she wants a bunch of CDs and something else. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. CDs, both imported and domestic. And
right.
There's like a couple other things too.
Yeah. So then Kenny shows up, and the girl that he had been seeing after the breakup with Jody comes up to him. She's all over him. She's kissing him. She's trying to escalate things. And then he stops her. He's like, I cannot believe this is happening to me twice, and I've stopped a girl from trying to get in my pants. She's like, oh, tell me what's wrong. I love a challenge. And he's like, you know what? So do I. And then he puts his cape on and he takes off out of the school, out of the hunting lodge, because he's now going to go and get his woman back. So then we cut to the teacher's house, and Mr. Marlston is struggling with this big trunk. He is pulled out of his car and got on his front porch, and he's trying to get it inside. Jody rides up on her bicycle and asks if he needs help. He's like, yeah, actually I do. She's like, cool. And he's like, well, it's going into the basement though, so it's a bit of a walk. And she's like, sure. And they get over to the basement door, and of course there's, steps that go down. He starts talking to her, and he can tell that there's something wrong. She says that she found out something about her dad. And he's like what? That he's a liar, a fraud, and a criminal? And she looks at him like, yeah, actually. So then he shoves the trunk down the stairs. So it goes and lands at the bottom of the steps. So Jody looks at him and is like, what's in the trunk? And he says, and it comes off in a way that could be a joke, but might not be a joke. And he says, your dad. And then she looks at him and he's like, or maybe mine. And she thinks, well, maybe he's messing around. So she goes down, opens it, and there's her dad, all taped up, bloody and beaten, inside this trunk. She looks around and sees, what's in the box? She looks around and sees the wig, the disguise stuff, all kinds of stuff, all the stuff that was being used for him to disguise himself as Laura Lee Sherman. So this is the moment where we now realize it was the teacher the whole time.
It's the big reveal. But really, we don't really know because it's just sitting on the side. It could be somebody else's.
Yeah, she just thinks this is his house. He just rented it just today. So.
Yeah, that was the big reveal.
I was not surprised. I figured that out early on. So then we bounce back to the party for a second. Just more shots of people making out, and then back to the teacher's basement. Now Jody's strapped down on some kind of chair.
You forgot the part that he just fucking decks her. Like when she figures out everything, he just fucking hauls off and decks her like hard.
Yeah, he does, because that's how he knocks her out to get her strapped down. That's right. Yeah, he does not. He knocks her out.
And this was probably the most convincing part of the movie because I'm just like, damn, he fucking knocked her shit out.
So yeah, he knocks her out. He straps her down to this, I don't know, it wasn't like a dentist chair. It was more like a mortician's table, but you could move. I don't know.
Yeah, it was
some kind of weird chair. And then of course the dad, the sheriff, he's tied up to a regular chair. The teacher demands that the sheriff tell the story as to why this is taking place. Like what happened that made him pissed off at the sheriff. And the sheriff, of course, doesn't want to. And the teacher threatens Jody. But Jody's like, my mom already told me the story. You're not going to shock me. I already know. So thanks, Mom, for ruining it.
Spoilers, Mom.
Yeah, spoiler alert. So the sheriff still panics, though. He's like, don't tell her. Don't tell her. Jody's like, I already know, though. But the sheriff tells the story anyway. So they do a flashback scene. We're back in high school. Him, Tom, the principal, and two other guys were driving along in their car. They come across Laura Lee Sherman, who's outside of her car, broken down on the side of the road. They all get out, and Tom is distinctly intoxicated. Like he's falling down, basically passes out beside the car when he gets out and lays there on the pavement while the other three guys go over to Laura Lee, and she's saying that she's, I need a ride, I need this or whatever. And they all start just fucking with her, like being total assholes. And ultimately they grab her and lay her down on top of a picnic table. And the three of them do rape her. And then after they do that, they go over to the sheriff, pick him up off the ground and lay him on top of her and force him to rape her. Well, he's telling this story. He's like, even though I was drunk and I was barely conscious, I still knew what I was doing. He's like screaming out, I still knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing.
And at the same time, he wasn't doing anything. His friends were holding him up. I don't know how they got him inserted, but they just kept on like moving him back and forth. So like he had no control over what was going on.
Right. So while he's telling this story, we see shots from the flashback. We also see shots of the teacher putting makeup on and putting the wig on and getting into the Laura Lee Sherman character. And I have to say, Jay Moore looks pretty good in makeup. Wow. I was surprised. Because as Jay Moore, he doesn't necessarily have a very feminine face, but once he put the makeup on, it actually worked. It looked more feminine. I guess he doesn't have sharp features.
He probably contoured.
Yeah. That's probably what he did. The sheriff is crying and, he's all upset because he knew what was happening and he still knew what he was doing. And then Mr. Ralston starts twisting his knife very emotionally, saying, Laura Lee was in love with him. As he's getting up in the sheriff's face. She's like, did you know that she was in love with you? She wrote poems for you. She wrote songs about you and stories about you, but she never got to tell you before. And after it happened, she couldn't tell you or anyone. Oh, except for me. And then we get a flashback of him when he was a kid in the crib, and you see Laura Lee, who's just beating him mercilessly with a belt or whatever she's got, I guess. And she's just hitting him over and over, I guess, as she's telling him the story. And then he says, it's hard living with someone who looks like the person you love and hate, and then calls the sheriff Dad. Another big twist.
Oh, no.
So because of that, he decided he was going to come back to town to punish everyone by killing their perfect virginal kids. And then Kenny shows up in his hot rod of a car. We get a shot of Kenny outside driving up. Then we get a shot of the teacher back inside. He's going back over to Jody because he wants to finish writing Virgin on her thigh because he didn't get to finish it before because he was so rudely erupted by Jaws. So
I know, and that was rude.
Yeah, obnoxious. So you can see the first part of the V there, and it's stitched up, and then so he
Poorly.
starts to go. Yeah, so he starts to go carve the other side of the V into her leg to finish this ritual he has, and the doorbell rings, and then he's like, "What the fuck? Who's at the door?" Now, who decides to stop doing their serial killer shit just because a doorbell rings? Who does that? What?
Apparently this guy.
And of course, we know it's Kenny. So Jody and the sheriff immediately try screaming, and he covers her mouth, tapes it up, goes over, tapes up the sheriff's mouth, of course. And then, because, of course, the serial killer always answers the door like it's no big deal while I'm in the
Of course.
business. He answers the door. He's in this robe. He has taken the wig off, and he asks Kenny, "What are you doing here in the middle of the night?" And Kenny asks where Jody is, and Marlston plays dumb, like he doesn't know where she is. She's not here. Then Kenny points out her bike. It's right there. Marlston denies it. Marlston says, "Why are you looking at me weird?" And then Kenny says, "Why are you wearing lipstick?" And Marlston says, "Because it makes me feel pretty." And when he says this, you can see him pull out a small knife. But Kenny just punches him in the gut and knocks him back, runs inside the house, and smart move. He literally turned around and shut and locked the door. I was like, because I was yelling, lock the door, and he actually did. He listened to me.
And I might point out the fact that Kenny is huge compared to the teacher. Like the actor was much bigger than Jay Moore.
Yeah, like height, like he was a skinny, scrawny kid,
and he also had a big head compared to him. And the only reason why I remember that is because I watched it just before we did all this. And his head was fucking huge.
Yeah, I would say he's at least probably 6'3". He looked like a really tall person. Or Jay Moore is just really short.
Yeah, I think it's Jay Moore is really short.
So Kenny locks the door and starts yelling for Jody. And then downstairs, while he's upstairs looking through the house, the sheriff manages to knock over the chair he's in and scooch his way over to a big mirror that fortunately is right there near him, that he can knock over and make a loud crash sound. So Kenny knows where they are. So Kenny hears it, runs downstairs to the basement, finds Jody, rips the tape off her mouth, unties her hands. She starts to untie her feet while he goes over to try and free the sheriff. And outside, we see the teacher grab an axe and chops his way back inside through the door. Then he comes down to the basement, and a fight ensues. The sheriff gets loose, lands a punch, but the teacher cuts him in the neck. Yeah. And the sheriff falls down, and of course Jody's screaming and
because he had a knife and he plunged it into his neck.
Yeah. And Kenny grabs Jody. He's like, "Come on, we gotta go. And she's still screaming for Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. The teacher turns around to go attack Jody, but the dad, who's still alive, does grab something and plunges it into the teacher's leg. So now the teacher's pissed, turns back around, takes the axe, and just axes the fuck out of the dad.
Dad's done.
Over. Bye-bye, Sheriff Markham. Kenny and Jody run out of the house, and instead of just getting this car and driving away, because they had plenty of time to do that, no, they just go running into the woods. And apparently the secret house is very close to the teacher's house, because they don't have to run very far. They show up at the sex party house, they run up to it, and they're at the steps, and a cop stops them. He's like, "Where are you guys going? What are you doing? Stop, kids." And Jody tells him, screaming, she's like, "It's the teacher. It's Mr. Marlston. He's the killer. He's at his house. He just killed my dad. They're there. You need to go stop it. You go get him." So then the cop recognizes her. He's like, "Jody, is that you?" And she's like, "Yes." And then she's like trying to convince him to go. So the cop radios the sheriff's deputy, the one that's like the right-hand girl, and tells her that the sheriff is dead and the killer is Mr. Marlston, the English teacher. And the movie does this thing right here because they show her receiving this information over her walkie-talkie, and she lifts her head up. She's walking normally. When she hears the sheriff's dead, she lifts her head up and back, her mouth's open. But instead of just relying on her acting, they decide, "Ooh, she sucks. We're going to have to really slow this down and do some wobbly thing with the camera so that we all know how devastated she really is." It was just, right. I was like, why are we doing this? So then we go back to Jody and Kenny and the cop, and they're trying to convince him to leave. And he's like, "I can't leave my post. I can't just split." And the second he says split, the axe comes down and splits his head open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, ha ha ha, funny joke.
Yeah. So Jody and Kenny scream and they run into the house. The teacher, Mr. Marlston, he can't yank the axe free. So he's like, son of a bitch. So he ditches it and pulls out one of his knives and he follows them into the house. So
well, also this axe was very shiny, brand new.
Yes, it was.
Because it was supposedly used to chop wood, and you would think there'd be some scratches on it, even from one use. This was a perfectly shiny, brand spanking new axe.
Yeah, when he pulled it out originally at his house, it was in a piece of wood.
Right.
And it was shiny, brand new.
Yep, absolutely.
They run inside and we see that most of the kids are not downstairs anymore, where they originally all were dancing and whatever. The only two down there are Mark and Sandy, and they're still slow dancing. They didn't go up with all the other kids. I don't know why all the kids went upstairs, but they did. So then Jody and Kenny run upstairs and they burst into a room and all the kids are packed together, half naked, trying to save their lives. And Jody screams that Mr. Marlston is the killer. And when she says that, he appears and says, "Class dismissed." And then it's full chaos. So kids are running and all over the place, back and forth, screaming, and he's slashing through them and they're stampeding basically. Kenny gets separated from Jody in the rush and he's like underneath a bunch of kids. Somehow he suddenly got under a bunch of kids. She gets pulled off into another room. The kids are all running out of the room and mostly of them manage to get past the teacher. But they're get bottlenecked on the staircase. Yep. So they're piling up on the staircase. And the way the staircase is it goes down, then there's a landing, then it turns and goes down again. So they're all trying to get down the steps. As they're doing that, the sheriff's deputy, that's his right-hand girl, I never got her name. She is going up and gets to the landing. And as she gets to the landing, all the kids start coming down and knock into her. So there's a big pile up there at the platform and they're all just stuck on the stairs. Like no one can seem to get around this corner.
Yeah, no one's moving. It's just
they're not piling up and piling up. Finally, the pushing gets to the point where it's so bad and they're so piled up. The railing does break and kids go flying off the side. That clears the jam enough for most people to start running outside. Then we go back to Jody and she keeps, running around upstairs and other places. She then suddenly is alone. She was pulled into a room by some other kids, but then she was by herself. I don't know where those kids went. So she finds this.
They went downstairs.
But they went the other way, which is a back staircase that those kids figured out.
Maybe.
You wouldn't be surprised in this house. This house was that big. So she opens this tiny door and J.D. Quall's character and some girl are in there and they're, in the midst of saving their lives. So she goes and runs back out of that room, but runs straight into Mr. Marlston. He grabs her, gets her on the ground, starts choking her, but then Kenny shows up and locks him in a chokehold. He's behind him, with his arm around his neck, but Marlston elbows him in the gut and then turns around and slashes Kenny across the chest. Kenny drops to the floor. He's bleeding. He's hurt. And again, it's a weird slow motion moment where we see this happen and then we look at Jody and it's all weirdly slow.
Yeah.
Whatever. They really want us to feel it.
Honestly, I'm surprised that they didn't write into the script when he was choking her. Choke me harder, Daddy.
Yeah. I didn't look to see what this movie was rated. I know it wasn't rated X, but was it R?
I don't know. I think it was PG-13, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I would have figured. It was PG-13. But they basically took the porn script and they had to get it cleaned up for PG-13. So they probably originally did say "choke me down, your daddy," so, but they decided, we probably might have to change that. You can bite her toes, but don't choke her. That's a no-no. That would give us an R rating for sure. Marlston turns back to Jody. She has these flashbacks of every interaction she's had with him, whether as the teacher or as the creepy Lorley Sherman. Then he lunges towards her, and Jody finally gets to use the move her dad taught her. Not quite in the same way, but she does grab his arm and twist him and shoves him through the French doors, which go out onto a porch. And he manages to, and this is quite a bit of space between where she does this and where he falls off the porch railing. But I guess she pushed him hard enough that he could not catch his footing, and he stumbled all the way across the porch and flipped over the railing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then became impaled.
Yes. So the lower landing where the steps are that go up into the house, the railing, the handrail on that was off. And I don't remember why it was off, but maybe it's just because it was an old rundown house, but even though it wasn't that old and rundown. So the posts were sticking up.
Everybody was bottlenecked there too.
Yeah, probably. So he lands on that. Of course, it goes through him. He's laying there, eyes are closed. We assume he's dead. Everyone stares. And then Mark, being Mark, walks up and starts messing with him. And he takes the wig off. And everybody's like, no, Mark, don't. And as soon as he takes the wig off, Marlson's eyes snap open and he grabs Mark and everyone screams. Then the deputy, she finally makes her way outside and points 2 guns at him and just fires nonstop.
Just goes guns akimbo. Just friggin' just lays out.
I don't know how she missed Mark.
Right. And every police officer knows how to effectively go guns akimbo and just start freaking shooting.
Right. So then we see Jody on the balcony. She's looking down. Kenny staggers out to her, barely holding on, but he's made it. Outside, the kids are huddled together on the stairs, shaking and covered in blood. Jody and Kenny are up top almost, and they're close, huddled together. There's almost a kiss, but not quite before we change scenes. So then we have Jody and her mom inside the police station. The FBI is questioning Jody about everything that went on, and they ask her why the sheriff was in West Virginia. She's like, I don't know. And then they keep trying to press, why did the teacher go on this mad killing spree? Like, she's supposed to know? And
right.
I don't know. I mean, she knows, but she's like, but technically, if she didn't, like, why would she know? I mean, she does know, but most of the time, people don't know.
Right. I mean, it would be fair to assume that she didn't know anything about this stuff.
Right.
And the way the questions were being done, it's like he was being accusatory of whatever it is that her husband was doing, she somehow had something to do with.
Yeah, they almost made it seem like Jody and her mom or Jody or somebody had some part in this. They were questioning her in a really weird way. He asks Jody, more questions about, is there anything else you need to tell us? And the mom says, I think you have asked my daughter enough questions. We're going home. And she shuts it down. And then the sheriff's deputy, she puts on this big smile, like, yeah, you tell him.
Shakes her head yes a little bit.
Right. So then they walk out to the car. And as they're getting in the car, Jody looks across the street and she thinks she sees Mr. Marlson dressed as Lord Lee Sherman. But then a school bus passes by and he's gone.
No way.
Weird. Can't believe it. Is there going to be a Cherry Falls 2?
No.
Thank God. So then the final shot is we see the actual Cherry Falls, because there's a waterfalls thing with a river, and it turns blood red.
And it's a very poor digital coloring.
Yes. It like slowly creeps in over the water. All right. So what are your thoughts on the movie, Dan?
This was a poorly written piece of shit.
Right.
God. Like I said throughout the whole thing, it was weird. The adults were too much into the kids' sex lives. The idea of a virgin killer was dumb. Now, don't get me wrong. I tend not to try to blame the actors for certain pieces, because they can only do what they're being directed to do. Unless like they're really, really bad actors.
Right.
Then you can put the blame on them. But for the most part, the directors and the screenwriters, they fucked this movie up pretty bad.
Yeah.
Unlike Fever Lake, this one doesn't have a story. Because Fever Lake, we both agreed that it does have a story in there that if it was done properly, it could have been a really decent movie. But this didn't. This had nothing redeeming to it. The only thing I can say is that it was watchable, at least the second time, because I fell asleep the first time.
Right.
It was confusing through most of it. I didn't know what was going on. And that was with watching it with full attention.
Yeah, you didn't even know about West Virginia. There was a whole scene.
I know, right? And I don't know. It just was not, it's not something that I would necessarily recommend. But because of the fact that it was somewhat watchable, I would give it 3 cents.
Okay. So I feel like what they were trying to do with this movie, and I like the idea, but it was poorly executed. So in most horror movies, especially horror movies throughout the 80s, the virgins were the ones that lived. They were the ones that, for whatever reason, the slasher guy never got. They were the final.
Well, it was the morality of the story. If you were a good girl and, you ate your vitamins and, all that stuff, and then you'd be safe from the killer.
Right, because the killer knows.
Right.
So I feel like what they were trying to do was flip that narrative and make it take that trope that the virgin always lives and flip it to where the virgin dies, which could have been done if they had done it in a better way. It was almost like they wanted it to be a serious twist on the trope, but it turned into something it wasn't even campy. It wasn't,
No.
it was, I don't know. There are some things that were a little too much, of course, like all the weird sexual innuendo and most of it going nowhere. It's like they just put it in there to put it in there just because we're so dumb. We have to have some sort of weird sexual thing going on in every movie we watch. I mean, I realize this is coming out of the 80s, and the 80s was like that, where there was a lot of sex and nudity. And there wasn't any real nudity in this movie either.
No, there wasn't. There was one boob shot.
Yeah, that was when the Annette, the dead girl.
Yeah,
she was on the morgue table. Yeah, so I think that was what they were trying to do. Maybe I'm giving them a little more credit than they're due.
But at the same time, like with the premise though, like how did the teacher know that all these people were virgins?
Well, that I assumed was because he's a teacher and he hears them all talk. Like when he had the conversation with Jody in his room when she was handing him the paper, after she recited T.S. Eliot, she's like, "Is that the way it is in real life? Is it always so sad and glum and nobody finds the right person?" Or whatever shit she was saying. And he assumed that she was upset because of the breakup with Kenny. And he said, "I realize you and Kenny just recently broke up." And she gets all pissy. She's like, "What? You think my whole life is just based around one boy and that's what my whole life is?" So he obviously hears things. And my mom, she used to be a substitute teacher, and she was like, "You would not believe the shit that kids talk about openly in front of teachers in school." She's like, "It's crazy the stuff I know about these kids."
Okay, fair.
So he would know, I think, based on just what, kids are talking about. So I do think that part would work, but I still think that, like the whole thing with Annette, how does he know? I mean, yeah, Annette was really upset that the guy said that she gave him a Hummer, which doesn't make her not a virgin, I guess.
Right.
But how he knows that was true or not true, or if they did engage in sex, if that did happen, like how did he know specifically that did or didn't happen? I don't know. Just because she was super upset about it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Whatever. So I think that's what they were trying to do. They just didn't do it well. It was almost, I don't know if it was like satirical maybe, like, because it wasn't campy, but it was almost like it was a weird satire maybe that they didn't really execute. Because there were some lines in there that they said that I thought that they did on purpose, but they just didn't land the way I think they meant them to land.
Like Split?
Yeah, like that one. And just some of the over-the-top stuff that they did, it just, I don't know. It was like they were trying to make an 80s slasher film in reverse. And it just, or reverse engineer it in some way or whatever. I don't know. But it just didn't work.
It didn't land.
So, yeah. I would probably give this, and again, yeah, by the way, the acting was fine, except for, honestly, I don't know how much I liked Brittany Murphy's acting, and it may not even be her fault. It was probably direction because of all the weird daddy and just the sultry because she was really played up the big eyes, sultry, pouty look a lot. And it was just too much, but it could have just been that was the way they directed her to do it. That they wanted it to be that over the top, sultry, sexy, 15-year-old, 16-year-old virgin, whatever. I don't know who they were trying to appeal to in this movie, but I would probably give it maybe 2.5, 3 cents. I'd probably be right in there with you. Lake Mungo was better than this. I will say that. For sure.
Again, not a bad movie for a thriller. I wouldn't classify it as horror.
Cherry Falls or Lake Mungo?
Lake Mungo. No, Cherry Falls just sucks all around.
Oh, yeah. Right. So, all right. So do you have anything else you'd like to add, or are we wrapping this up?
Put a sock on it.
We can put a sock on it. Now we're leaving Cherry Falls, a town that responds to trauma, secrecy, and bad leadership by making everything worse. And in 2 weeks, where are we headed to, Dan?
All the Boys Love Mandy Lane.
All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. And where can we see this movie?
Where can we see it?
YouTube.
Yes, YouTube. Yeah, YouTube was the only place we could find it. They had to do some funky stuff to make it bypass the copyright. but it's there.
Yeah. It's a movie that asks a much simpler question than Cherry Falls did. What if everyone agrees someone is perfect and that turns out to be the problem? So join us next week for jealousy, entitlement, and a body count that doesn't require a town meeting, a flyer, or several wildly irresponsible adults. Until then, be scared, be prepared, and don't get caught in the dark.